The reason why we're able to see massive jumps of growth is not luck. It's not talent. And it's not exactly on the back of self-discipline. It is simply somebody who does enough, like they put in the reps to say, these are results. So based on my results, I can make a different, quicker, and more informed decision about what it is I want to do.
Okay, just a quickie. I need to tell you about my secret weapon for building online businesses. You've heard me say it before, but you need to be using Kajabi. Kajabi is how I run my website, my courses, my webinars, my email list. Literally every single aspect is run on Kajabi. And the reason why I love it is that I don't have to faff around with all of this crazy tech trying to link it together. I just sign into one platform and I can run my entire business from that place. And I just have to remember one password, which is ideal. So if you want to give it a try, I've got a free 30-day trial link. Just go to carlymyers.com/Kajabi. I love it. I've been shouting about it for ages now, and everyone else that I recommended to loves it too. So make sure you do that. I know you're going to love it, and I will see you soon. Bye.
Hello, my friends. Ooh, I have got a good episode for you today. So at the beginning of the year, or a few months ago, I was telling you about these amazing guests that I had coming on, and I was bringing you the best of the best in the industry. And this woman is one of the people that I'm talking about. When you think about the best of the best in the industry when it comes to social media and online marketing and building a personal brand, Jasmine Star is the best. If you've not heard of her before, you are so welcome. I've just introduced you to her, and the game is going to change for you. She is incredible, and I'm just so inspired by her. She gives so much to her community. She gives so much, and she's just so passionate about what she does, and it comes through in the second that you hear her speak. You'll realize this when we go into our episode. You will listen, and within a couple of seconds you'll be like, damn, she A, really knows her stuff, and B, really cares about what she's saying. And I just have so much respect for her. I absolutely loved this conversation that we had together. I could have spoken to her for hours, and I just feel so grateful that we got to have this time together. And I know that you're going to love this episode. She didn't hold anything back, and she is just so open and honest about it all, and I think you're going to take so much from this. So I'm not even going to go into it too much, because you're going to hear all you need to hear as soon as you hear this episode. If you love it, tag me at Carly Myers Life and at Girls Building Empires. Tell me what you are absolutely loving, and I just can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. I think you're going to absolutely love it. So enjoy. Bye.
Hey Jasmine, how you doing?
I'm doing spectacular. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to have you on my podcast. I've followed you for a really long time. You're actually one of the first people that I really started following and really kind of like fully bought into in this female entrepreneur space. I was like, she's killing it. And something that I really admire about you is that I followed you for quite a few years now, and you have consistently shown up, like, all the time. There has never been a time, I know in that time you've had babies and you've had life changes, but you have always shown up, and I really massively admire that. So I wanted to let you know that, first of all.
Wow, thank you. That got me off guard. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, I think it's good. I think consistency is such a it's so hard, and it's the thing that people struggle with the most. And it's people, it's so hard when you do have life things that happen, as we all do, still showing up and still bringing that, 10 out of 10 energy and intention all the time, I think is something that is really cool. So.
And I think if we could start there for a second, because what happens is whenever we hear about this, the mind, like our brain, likes to map to similarities or differences. Mm-hmm. And so people who immediately create an affinity for somebody is somebody like them. And so when we start a conversation, be like, you've been consistent, you've had babies, you've had life changes, entrepreneur. Some people are saying already, different. Like their brain is saying, she's different, this is different, I'm more skeptical. But what I want to actually counter is, while that is true, while consistency is a fact, there are dates that posts have gone out and there's efforts, and like, this is what we call receipts. Like, receipts are printed, they're out there if people want to look. But what happens is, I kind of want to go back to the why. It's not enough to say, oh, consistency is important for your ambitions. I mean, we're talking about if you want to run a marathon, if you want to start a business, if you want to write a book or become a poet. Consistency across the board sounds like an extreme form of self-discipline. And while that could be true, I have never identified with somebody as somebody who's just like, oh, I'm disciplined, I know how to hit my metrics. I come from the school of thought that I have never really traditionally been an outlier, somebody spectacular. I've never been the one that somebody looks at and says, oh, that's the person we're going to bet on success. I've never been the person who's really distinctly qualified to do the thing that I do. And so if anybody's ever felt along those lines, I think it's an easier story to tell myself, instead of saying I am consistent or I am not the person who's a standout. I simply say that Results are a clear indication and facts of things that I have done in the past to get me to where I want to go. And I want to get to where I want to go a hell of a lot faster than I had at any other point in my time in my life. And so results become the markers and directions of your success. So the more results you have, just like any scientific experiment, the more results you have, the more informed decisions you can make. So when somebody says, wow, you've grown in success, or you've grown in this, or you've grown in that, whatever that thing may be for a listener, the reason why we're able to see massive jumps of growth is not luck, it's not talent, and it's not exactly on the back of self-discipline. It is simply somebody who does enough, like they put in the reps to say, these are results. So based on my results, I can make a different, quicker, and more informed decision about what it is I want to do. So as a listener is being like, I might not be this, I'll be good, welcome to the club. But if you, like me, want to get to where you want to go faster, then the quickest way to do that is actually to have results. The results might not be, and most often for me, are not the thing I want, aspire, or imagine. The results I hope for are big and glamorous and sexy and rule breaking and number breaking and record breaking. I want that. It hardly ever works that way. But it is the result, period, that gets me to where I want to go. So on that note, that's where I want to start the conversation. More of a likeness than dissimilarities.
Oh, it's so true. But I think that's what we need to hear more of anyway, and right. I think realizing that we are all so different, and results do talk so much, don't we? The results are massive. But how do you, oh God, I want to go back into your story, but now I'm just going off on a tangent. I want to ask you. Well, let's start on the tangent, because the story will come. The story comes in all the different questions, exactly, but the tangent is where people get to the practical things. So yes. Totally. I knew this would happen. I was just excited to get on and chat to you. And then I know I'm going to get carried away and just ask you all the questions that I want to ask you.
Good.
Those are the best ones anyway, aren't they? So if you talk about results and that being like the kind of driver, and that's the thing that you need. So the person that's been putting in the work, the person that's been like doing the do, and he's just not seeing the results, like what's your advice to that person to just be like, just keep going for those results?
Well, oftentimes it's a two-pronged assessment. Number one is somebody, oftentimes, and this is it, Carly, I'm just going to be very honest. I have coached and empowered tens of thousands of people. Now, that's not a humble brag. What I'm going back is I'm using numbers, data, and analytics to find trends. And when I have those trends, I share the trends. And this is the number one trend I always see. Whenever somebody says, I've been doing the work, my first question is, how long? Because in our mind, what we say is, I'm going to become consistent. And then the minute I've decided to become consistent, or the minute I've set a cadence in which I think is appropriate, I shall then see results. And oftentimes, I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, they will say, I've been doing it 5 months. And I'm like, oh, baby, let's chat in 5 years. And then the second thing, if somebody had says, I've been consistent and it's been 5 years, I then ask, can you define your level of consistency? And oftentimes, 9 times out of 10 on that question is their version of consistency. While great, something is better than nothing. It's really a big question of, actions mapping your ambitions? Because if your goal is to, get $100 million or $1 million or $100,000, well, what kind of actions are you taking to get to that number, and what type of frequency? So when you look at other people who are running $100 million businesses, $1 million businesses, or $100,000 businesses, what are they doing? Are your actions mapping similarly to your ambitions? I am telling you those two questions. Number one, how long have you been doing it? And number two, what is truly your definition of consistency, and how does that map statistically against others? I am telling you the vast majority fall into those two categories. And if we're not getting very clear answers on that, there is a reason why we're not getting the results that we want.
So true. That's the thing, isn't it? Most of the time, you're actually just not doing enough of the thing. Like I think a lot of people are quite deluded to the volume of things that you need to do, or the amount you need to do, and the length of time that you need to do it for. And you're exactly right. You're normally just not doing it long enough. And I also think as well, getting mega clear on what a result actually looks like. If you're only focusing on like that big result, if the only thing you're going for is like, I've only been successful when I hit that number, there are a lot of results along the way that you are hitting, but you're probably just blind to them because you're just so stuck on that big one. Would you agree?
I do agree. And then I want to back up a tiny bit, because what happens is, again, when we talk about similarities and dissimilarities, what we do is we give ourselves a way out by saying, I can't. So if I say, oh, well, you're just not doing enough. And then there's somebody who's hearing this, be like, listen, I have 4 children. I'm a single mom. I have a full-time job. So what happens is they hear dissimilarities and a misunderstanding. All I'm really saying is, when you evaluate what time you have available, are you maximizing that? And that looks very different for people. If you're a caretaker, if you're a student, you have multiple jobs, if this is a side hustle, if you're a parent, if you're a partner, there's a lot of things that come into consideration. So we're going to focus on the similarities, and the similarity across any type of time frame or availability that one has is, are you maximizing the time you have? That's where I really want to hedge that bet. And then secondly, what goes a little bit closer to what you were referring to quite now is, yes, there is the big picture, and then there are markers of success. And so we have to be able to celebrate the small markers of success, because those are the things that ultimately guide you to where you want to go. And then they re-inform your version of success. So I can't tell you how many times someone's like, oh, my goal is to make $1 million this year. And I love it. And I support people. And this is like a complete dream. And then all of a sudden, when they start reaching certain levels of success and they realize that, they could probably get to $1 million on their own, but if they brought in a couple people on their team, they could get there faster. And then all of a sudden, there's a whole skill set that they didn't experience before. Like, I'm a solopreneur, and then all of a sudden I have to bring people on because I want to grow faster and do more. And then all of a sudden you're being challenged on your leadership abilities, on your vision setting, and you're used to doing things on your own. And so then all of a sudden you weigh if getting to $1 million in the time and way that you want was actually what you wanted, if it required an entirely new skill set, like growing a team that was never in your ambition to begin with. So it is totally okay for you to celebrate the small successes, but then also use the small successes to reassess what the overall big picture is. It is okay to change your mind. It is okay to redefine your success. In fact, that is the kindest thing you could do yourself as a business owner.
Yeah, and I've heard you speak about that before, actually. I one of the things I heard on one of your podcasts is you spoke about your kind of evolution of entrepreneurship, like who you are now and your niche now was not how you started out. You weren't like, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to get involved in social media and I'm going to coach people how to do it. And I remember you saying like you've had so many different niches. So can you take us back and show us, kind of just tell us a little bit about what that journey's been? Because I think so many people are so stuck on, this is what I've decided to do, and so this is what I have to do forever. And they just don't give themselves that growth to be able to change.
It's crazy because I stood on a stage and I was speaking at a conference, and it was January 2023, and it was a very small slide. I think the slide in the presentation was up less than 20 seconds, but it was to give an overview that I understood the idea of growing multiple businesses at different times. But it was during Q&A that people, I would say probably 50% of the questions kept on going to that one slide. And I realized, oh, I need to go deeper on this topic of pivoting and then adding tools to your arsenal to showcase what kind of business owner you are. So let me just talk about what was on the slide. 2006, I became a photographer and I hadn't owned a camera. I simply decided that was the thing I wanted to do. And then I asked myself, how might I become a photographer? I had no money. I had no education. I had no connections. I had none of it, but I had Google. In 2008, I started becoming a content creator, but this is before that title existed. What I was simply doing was sharing my journey on how to become a better photographer and market yourself online. Around 2011, I started consulting. Other businesses were saying, hey, we like what you're doing. Can you come and do that for us? The business got so big and wonderful that I realized I don't want to have an agency. I don't want to work with other people. And I asked myself, how could I then scale what I've been doing on a consulting one-to-one basis? In 2015, I ventured into the world of course creation, which then scaled my efforts in education. And once I had done that for about 2 years, I realized what I wanted to do was have more consistent conversations around the changing demographics of branding and marketing. And in 2017, I launched a membership. And then all of a sudden, in the back of the membership, I realized that we needed a tech component for people to be able to plan, schedule, and post their social marketing post. So for the first time in 2020, your girl, who again, still finding myself in the same position, not funded, not educated, and not connected, decided to become a CEO of a SaaS technology company, Social Curator. We are now here in 2023, and people are like, wait, what have you just done in 13 years? And I'm like, oh, yeah, but here's the pattern. The pattern is I have an idea and I'm unqualified, unconnected, unfunded, and uneducated. How might I solve for the thing I want to do? That's it, Carly. That is 100% what I do again and again. And there's a really good chance that in 3 years, I'm going to add something else to that list. Why? I like doing things I don't know how to do to become a stronger owner and create multiple streams of revenue while standing in my purpose and empowering others.
Oh, you are speaking my language. I absolutely love that. I just love the idea that I fully believe as well that you can be anything that you want to be if you just have that mentality of like, I'll just figure it out. Like, it doesn't matter what's against me. I'm just going to figure out how to do it. And I think so many people right now in my audience are 2008 Jasmine. They're in that place where it's like, yeah, I'm figuring it out. Trying my thing, kind of feels like it works, kind of feels like it doesn't, but I don't really know what's going on. And I just wish that they could see 2023 version of themselves and all those steps in between and where they are right now. And I love that you show that so clearly and to just trust that you're going to end up where you're meant to end up. But you have to be bold in your moves and you have to be courageous and try stuff that you really have no idea what you're doing right now. But did you ever think that you'd start a software company?
Never in a million. I mean, never in a million years. I would have laughed. I would have laughed at anybody, but you know, out of the room. But I have to say is two things. Number one, we get caught up comparing our 2023 selves to somebody else's 2023, when what we really should be looking at is if you are in the first 1 to 2 years of your business, you should be comparing yourself to nobody but yourself. Mm-hmm. But if you're the type of person who is so genuinely interested on comparison to see where you're indexing, well, go back to that person's 2008, their proverbial 2008. What were they doing? How much were they making? How did it look like? Because social media has amplified this idea that everybody's an overnight success and that everybody knows what's going on behind the scenes. And I kind of just want to dismantle that. Like, we have to compare ourselves to just ourselves and what we have. And so I kind of created this analogy when I was explaining to people about different timelines, is that when we look at other people's success, we often compare it to the tools and resources that we have. So for instance, let's say that somebody on the internet says, I want to learn how to bake a cake, and they have tools to bake a cake. And then all of a sudden you, in a short amount of time, same time, you decide on one day on Instagram, you're going to bake a cake, and somebody else who you admire decides they're going to bake a cake. And then an hour later, they're holding a cake. And you ask yourself, how did that person make that cake when I'm over here struggling? I don't even have, I don't have the baking utensils. I don't have the ingredients yet. And I always go back and say, you never know the origin of the other person's cake. You don't know if that cake is fake. You don't know if that cake was given to you. You don't know if that person went to a patisserie school in France for 4 years to develop the skills to develop a cake in 1 hour. You don't know if that cake was stolen. I mean, there's so many reasons why somebody else could be having a cake that you have no idea. So what you want to do is compare the fact that you don't have the ingredients or the tools to create the cake, and somebody else has a cake when you have no idea how that cake existed. So my biggest advice to people who are creating or want to build a business is focus on your own dang cake. Take the time that you need. Your first 18,000 cakes are going to suck. It is after the suck. It is after the learning that you too will be able to create a cake on your own timeline and be known for that. But it only comes on the back of what? Doing the small things again and again, using the results, even if the results are not what you want, to indicate and guide future decision making.
So true. Oh, I love a cake analogy. Any kind of food analogy gets me. I love it. I'm like, yes. But it is so true. And I think, so many people can get so caught up in, comparing themselves, and it's just a completely pointless comparison because there's no context to it. So you talked about your software. You talked about the social curator. It's basically helping entrepreneurs create content and do it in an amazing way. You create a lot of content. Like, I always look at your stuff and I'm like, bam, she is pumping out a lot of content. I really want to know your secrets. How do you create the level of content you do to the standard that you do? Tell me all. Tell me your content creating habits.
Okay, I will. And I'm going to share it all. And then you have to ask a bunch of clarifying questions, because I really do want to dismantle people's ideology or philosophy or ideas or suspicions around what it takes to create content in that level. I'm going to add a caveat at the beginning that I know for me that a form and function of what I've always done prior to ever having a name that was recognized or being known or being a figure, prior to any of that, the only thing I had always known was it is important to share the journey, because as consumers function and as they become more intelligent online, they are making intellectual decisions on emotional considerations. People are buying and they're making an intellectual decision to buy, but based on emotional rationale. There's no good reason why somebody absolutely at 1 o'clock in the morning while they're scrolling Instagram really does need that face laser. But you get it because you're making an intellectual decision on an emotional response. It's like, am I aging?
I feel like what happens into my Amazon Prime account. I'm like, you know my habits.
No, because we've all been there. So here's the thing. This is the psychology of how it works. So if then we know that consumers are making intellectual decisions on emotional considerations, then my objective as a business owner, not everybody agrees, but my objective is, can I appeal to the emotional considerations of somebody else? And so studies and histories and psychology show that as humans, we're looking for similarities and dissimilarities. And the way that people are getting to the similarities quicker is by way of story, is by way of visual, is by way of communication. This goes back to like caveman ancestors who were telling stories on cave walls. We understand and distill heavy amounts of information by way of story. And so if I know that we are selling to people making intellectual decisions on emotional considerations, they're trying to find similarities and they do it the fastest by way of story, then my main objective is to say, how many stories can I tell in the most effective ways? So that is not for everybody. That is on the back of over a decade of me doing this since the beginning of my career. Having said that, I am creating content every single day. Now, I am not filming content or editing content every day, but it has to become a discipline. It is like going to the gym for me. I must do a little bit every day, because I realize that the way I work as a creative is that, like, if I'm like, okay, here's my 4-hour block to go through and create 4 YouTube videos, I would probably fling myself against the wall. Like, it doesn't work like that for me. So for me, instead of running 3 miles in a day, I would kind of be the person to run like 15 minutes a day. Like, we're still going to get to the 3 miles. It's just me different. And so every single day it's, okay, today I'm going to be writing the newsletter for the week. And then I ask myself, can I turn this newsletter into a blog post if I reformat it? Can I change this blog post into a YouTube video and make it under 6 minutes? And so what I'm doing is always thinking, since if you always stay a little bit in content all of the time, you start thinking to yourself, I can make this shorter and put this on a Instagram post. I can add a couple more business tips and this can be into LinkedIn. So all of a sudden, one piece of content had like an octopus effect. The core, the head, and then the tentacles and the arms are like, where else can I put this? That's the smartest way for me to do it. And so what I do is I batch videos once a month all day, but they've already been outlined. The B-roll has been added. What do we want somebody to do? How do we want them to feel? What's the story that we're adding here? And so on the back of that, I film videos once a month, and then I do a half day of videos on a phone. I really do like the mix of DSLR and phone videos. I want it to be approachable. I want it to be scrappy. I want to always stay on the cusp of what's changing, what's getting people's attention. But by and large, a day and a half a month is dedicated to filming and producing them.
That's so good to know, because when you're trying to do it, when you're trying to video and record every day, this is what I was doing before.
Oh, Lord.
I know. I felt like, obviously, I've got 2 kids. They're really young. Most of the time I haven't slept. Most of the time I haven't showered. I'm like, this is a lot. And your energy isn't always in that place, is it? But yeah, I've actually started recently doing that, like 1 day of batch, and it's made a massive difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we want to give ourselves grace and then also give ourselves the permission, like, what do we need? And the more you do it, again, the results, the more we do it, the more we can facilitate what it is we need. So on the days that I'm like the full batching days for videos, like JD, my husband and business partner, we bring in a support structure, either a family member or a babysitter, because we need our daughter to be fully attended, taken care of. And I don't need to divide my attention between two things. Now, do I understand that as a luxury? Absolutely. But we've worked over 13 years to get to this point. And every time you do it a little bit more, you start realizing what you need and how your family changes, and you have to flex with it.
Yeah, 100%. I'd love to talk to you actually about I'd love to know the difference between Instagram and TikTok, and kind of like angles that you go, and, you know, focuses that you do on different platforms. Because I feel like TikTok is an amazing way to really go viral at the moment, isn't it? And really scale. Do you have a thing that you feel like is really working on TikTok?
You know, if you were to ask me this question a year ago, I would have had like a very distinct, like difference and pathology to the way that I'm approaching it. It's, for me, I'm going to be very careful with what I say and take it with a grain of salt. I am a practitioner. I am a creator. I am a poster. I'm a strategist. And if somebody were to say, are all followers ranked equal? Are they worth the same? And in my mind, the answer is very clearly no. It is much harder to get transaction deep relationships on TikTok than it is even LinkedIn, even Facebook, even more than Instagram, and like way more on YouTube. Somebody who subscribes and engages on YouTube is worth more from a business perspective than, vastly more than somebody on TikTok. And on TikTok, it's happening for two things. People suspect, and I'm kind of like a little bit kind of sort of agree, that the massive growth for a lot of accounts is coming on the back of questioning how real are these followers. Specifically because the way that the algorithm presents itself, and the TikTok algorithm is the best. Hands down, better than best. It is so intuitive. It is so brilliant. But they have indexed TikTok to be for views based on interests that you have denoted. And every other social platform is based on indications of interest by what you select. TikTok, your actions determine the algorithm. And on other social platforms, while that's a component of it, it's really like, who are you following? What are your expressed interests? And TikTok's going to, what do you want to see? What do you want to post? And so what happens is that TikTok is constantly serving up amazing content that keeps you stuck on the platform, but it's not really serving up content from people who have already followed you. And so in my mind, because the caption on TikTok doesn't really exist, they're largely just filled with hashtags, is that the content is quick, sexy, flashy, fun, but is it really made for depth? And if I wanted to become popular, TikTok's where it's at. If I wanted to become profitable, I would index on other platforms. But that's only after being on TikTok now for like 3 years and really diving deep into it. I have also noticed, and I'm super geeked out about this stuff, I've also noticed that when I create a reel on Instagram, well, I'll save it and then I'll take it on over to TikTok. But TikTok knows everything and Instagram knows everything. And I started realizing that when I was creating TikToks on TikTok using their editing tools and creating in real time and saving it as a draft, it always performed so much better than the other stuff that I was importing. And likely there are tools and editing formats like on TikTok, you know, the voiceover, like, this is my morning breakfast routine. That when you import those on Instagram, they have a tendency of not doing as well. In fact, people will say, like, if you just like download your TikTok and then you upload your TikTok to Instagram and you still have the TikTok logo, like, Instagram knows all. They're not showing that. And so I think it's just really important to say, what is the strategy? I think a couple of years ago, I was really hardcore about, like, I wanted to do half of my shorts on TikTok and half of them on Reels. And what I've realized, that I'm like, okay, it's important that I'm showing up on TikTok, but I'm not as indexing as I was before, where I wanted to do 50%. I would say like 90% of the content that I'm creating is happening natively in Instagram. That is not a rule for anybody, but for where you want your audience to dwell. And for me, my dream audience is on Instagram. So if I want to cultivate on Instagram, if I want the algorithm to like look favorably on my content, I'm going to create where I want to most grow. I will repurpose on TikTok. I love it. I'm still showing up on TikTok 3 or 4 times a week, but it's not as much as my focus anymore because I'm not able to go as deep. And you know, for 2023, my big push obviously will still be creating on Instagram, but I'm spending a lot more of my content creation time building out long form videos for YouTube. I think that YouTube long term is going to be the massive key to growth. If you're looking for how you want to grow your business and where you're at and you're just starting, I'm like, if you can have the time and the energy to build on YouTube, it will pay off in years to come. And that's where I've kind of just changed it a little bit, my strategy. So we'll see how that fares for me into coming years.
Yeah, totally. Because people are saying that it's like YouTube is like reality TV for people now, isn't it? Like people are just tuning into YouTube and watching their favorite people as opposed to putting on reality TV. And I totally agree with you about TikTok because TikTok, I literally ruined my algorithm because I watched one video of this guy popping a blackhead. It was like a 2-minute video and I watched the whole thing. It was so
Oh, that's it. Now you have a popping feed.
It is all I'm getting, just so many videos. And so they're like, oh, she loves this kind of stuff. And I do kind of love that stuff, but I just wasted literally like half a day watching blackheads being popped. So I had to steer away from that. Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of algorithm, isn't it? For sure. But that's interesting that you say that. And I think it is, again, knowing what your result is, knowing the result that you want to get, whether you want to get sales and whether you want to increase your revenue or whether you want more people to like you and whether you just want more, you know, followers and that kind of vanity metric of the number. It's important. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Different business model, isn't it?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing. So I need to talk to you about a couple of weeks ago, you were in the most ridiculous room of people I have ever seen. You were at Brenda Burchard's mastermind, weren't you?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I literally looked at a screenshot of like all the people in that room and the people that were tagged. I took a screenshot of the people that were tagged and I was like, I need to be in that room. That is the most incredible room of people. And I just wanted to ask you what it was like being in that room of all those powerhouse people that are just making such massive moves in this space. And I can't imagine the conversation, but I would just love to be around that energy. I would love to know what that's like.
Absolutely. So because I want to serve the best way possible, what is it that you would like to know? Because it's hard. You're like, what was the energy like? And I'm like, well, the energy was palpable. It was in the beginning for me, very intimidating. I did not know these people in like personal capacities prior to the room. I was full of like anticipation. But in most cases, when I am in those environments, in any environment, so people look at and they immediately assume, oh, you must be an extrovert. And I'm like, well, I'm an introvert who plays an extrovert as needed. And so, you know, from a business strategic perspective, I'm outgoing, but wild, like off the Richter scale introvert. So when I'm in settings like that, I usually find myself going mute. I just go super, super, super quiet. And so I have pages and pages of notes and observations. But, you know, I think it's a little bit doing a disservice if I don't really know, like, what, tell me what, ask any question and I'll answer it. I don't even know where to begin, how to answer it.
It's interesting you say that because I'm exactly the same as well. And I think, again, that's something that's really important to show because so many people will be like, oh, well, it's fine for you because you get on podcasts and you have loads of confidence and blah, blah, blah. But actually, if you are like a real deep rooted introvert, even sometimes, you know, having the strength or the courage to show up online all the time is really tough. So I just wanted to point on that in a second. But I think it's more so like, I would love to know if you felt like there was a common trait between all of those people. Like, could you say, this, I understand now. I understand why all of these people have the businesses that they have, because I can see that you're all like this. Or there's just like something different. Like there was something different around those people that you were with that made sense as to why they've created that success.
I love that question. And it was one of the things that I took away from the weekend, which was like a distillation and like, what do I need to focus on? So I picked 3 things I need to focus on, 3 things I learned, and any like 3 patterns that I noticed with the people in the room. And so there were 26 people in the room, and like the top one thing that I saw as a similar pattern with everybody was the level of consistency to what they were creating. And it's unrefutable. Like when you have people who are creating in that capacity, these are people with millions and millions of followers on each of their channels, and they have massive, massive businesses, and they are still in the thick of leading what they want their content to represent. Thought that was like that was very good, and it was amazing because I kind of maybe had this idea that they must have like a content team behind them, and really like no, they're still in the weeds, in the thick of it, and I thought that was really beautiful. Number two is they were a lot more vulnerable and open than I had experienced in any other community or group. Like I thought I was going to come in and I'm like, girl, get your strategy hat on. We're going big. And then what completely shifted was people were there to talk about like the humanness, the humanity of what it is to build a business. And it was in the openness and the brokenness and the vulnerability that people were able to extrapolate strategies or pour into each other. And so there was no pretense of being like, oh, I have my crap together, and oh, just another day on the New York Times bestseller. Like absolutely not. You know, it's like people are talking about like, I want to be a New York Times bestseller. And then you have people in the room who say, I wanted that too. It didn't happen. So then I had to shift my focus from the purpose of the book. And was the purpose to become popular and like have this thing behind my name that I'm a New York Times bestseller? Or was the purpose to get people to read and change their lives? And so it became like a soothing balm. And then there were other people who got really tactical, like multiple times New York Times bestseller. Here are some strategies. And everybody was just sharing. But that only came on the back of being like open with where you were in the journey. So, you know, first was the dedication to their craft and still being in it. And then two was like being open and vulnerable and stating what your truth was and allowing other people to help. And then the third was like just a complete and total surrender to also understanding that while you have a successful business, you shift from, oh, I'm making a few $1 million to, if I really want to make tens of millions of dollars, then I need to cultivate a team. And then as you cultivate a team, there's a new level of expectation. You're no longer a business owner. You are a leader of a business. And that skill set, you know, hearing the way that they have cultivated teams and let go of people and create structures and create ways to have like goal-based incentives for a team. And what does like human resources look like? And who do you have to become as a leader that's so different than just a business owner? That kind of stuff right there. It was their leadership qualities and the lessons they've learned that like really like cracked my brain open.
That is exactly what I was looking for. Thank you so much. I love to hear, it's so good to hear that they're still like in the thick of the content, because I feel like when I took over Girls Building Empires, there was so many moving parts, there was so much going on that I almost pushed the content to the last, like to the back. And I was like, I need to get my my courses in place and my things so that I actually have like a monetization strategy and things like that. And content was definitely not my focus at all. And really in the last couple of weeks, it's actually become my number one focus. I'm really set on doing like 80% of my time being on that now. And I feel like it feels good actually to be in the thick of it more, you know, like just closest to the audience and understanding that a lot more. And I love the vulnerability piece as well. And I think that probably completely shows the power of being a part of a mastermind, doesn't it? And being in that group where you can just say, this feels safe to open up. I feel like I'm not, you know, I don't have to pretend to be anyone. And just to give the listeners a little bit of context as well, like the people in this room are like Mel Robbins, Jay Shetty, Amy Porterfield, Jenna Kutcher, like epic, obviously Brendan Burchard, just incredible people. And it's so good to hear that they also have those moments as well of like, you know, just doubt and like, this didn't go how I thought it was going to go, and, you know, and how you learn from that. So yeah, that was, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
So I would love to know now what's the drive now? Like, what's the thing that's really getting you so pumped up and so focused? And what's your vision for where you're going?
Okay. When you were talking about it, I was like, should I add on or just leave it be? And I'm like, I'll just let it be. But I think it kind of it dovetails into you saying like how maybe you kind of stepped a little bit back from the content creation. I will definitely say that much to my chagrin, I was still creating content. I was not doing the amount of content that I think is necessary to really stay in control of vision, messaging, ideology. And I was doing 10,000 things. And I really loved our content team. And I trusted them. And they're great. They're just never you.
Yeah.
And I think I stepped away from it a little too long. And so when you said, I actually really like being back in the thick of it. And I was like, bless. I'm thankful, and I know it is the right decision, but it still feels very heavy because I went from not having to carry that load as much to I am carrying all of the load. And I'm in control of the decision. I made the decision. I was empowered by the decision. But just because you're making the right decision and an empowered decision, it doesn't mean that it's easy, or it doesn't mean that it's simple. And so when you talk about, okay, so what's your vision? At the end of 2022, I had to do a deep dive and just really have like, I feel like 2022, handed me a pile of poop in a blender and then added a straw. That's how I feel my 2022 was. And I feel like there's going to come a day where I can actually talk about the specifics. That day is not today, and it's probably not anytime soon. There's so much that I really had to look back and reflect and ask myself, were you in control of the situations? Were you mapping your aspirations to your actions? Where did you get caught up? Where did things slow? What happened? And it was mid-December 2022 where I just took some time. I went by the water and I just journaled and I wrote everything that I wanted to do. I wasn't going to dwell for 2022. I had to say, what are you doing in 2023? But what are you doing in 2023 to get you to where you want to go in 2027? It was just like, what are we actually doing here? Because without a big picture goal, it's really hard to assess what you're going to say yes and no to. And I was saying yes to so many things. I was running 1,000 miles a minute. And for all intents and purposes, to me outside, it's like, wow, look at her go. And I'm like, yeah, look at me. I am like sprinting. I'm just sprinting. And I'm like, you're sprinting in place. Mm-hmm. Where are you going? And saying no is such a powerful tool as a business owner, but you don't know what to say no to until you have a much bigger vision where you have this beautiful, amazing, sparkly opportunity and be like, hell yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to make some money. It's going to be great. And then you're like, great, but why? Like, did you put more distance between you and your ultimate vision? And that's what I did a lot of in 2022, a lot of, and lots of lessons learned. And like 2023 is the year of no. Like my mantra is, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. Mm-hmm. I am only doing things that are like hell yes, because that's getting us to where we want to go. Not easy and not simple. Mm-hmm. But when it's grounded by, you have a limited amount of time. What are you going to do? Where are you going to spend it? Then it kind of, the things just like fade away naturally.
It's so important to get clear on that as well, isn't it? Especially if you are someone who gets caught up in being busy. Like I've definitely made that mistake, probably for 2022 for me, actually. The whole year was about just being busy and looking like, look at how much I'm doing. Look how much I can achieve. I'm a mum and I can do all this. And aren't I amazing? And actually, like you say, you're just actually doing it on the spot and not going anywhere. So yeah, getting clear on where you're going is so important. And I do actually have to admit that although I'm enjoying being in it mentally of like understanding my content more, the reality of it is tough. Like this week, both my kids are off sick. There's been no childcare. They've both been home, and I've been trying to create, this is my content week. I've been trying to create loads of content, and I have been stressed. Like it has not felt an enjoyable experience today. So although I'm really enjoying like the research and the being in that part of it, the reality of it is it's testing. It's tough.
I have to tell you though, I'm gonna share what my husband said, and half of me is just like, I fall madly in love with him when he says it, and the other half of me just wants to punch him in the face. Yesterday I was saying, I'm like, you have a list of things to do, and you really firmly believe. And I'm pretty self-aware. I know my capacity. So if I say I can get what's done on my list, it's based on decades of doing that work. So it's really odd that the consistent pattern of 2023 is like, I'm not getting done what's on my list. And my husband had asked, like, do you think it's because you're in a content creation mode that's getting you back into shape and how you used to create content creation? It's like the person who used to run, a 7-minute mile, and then you just stop running for a little bit and you're pissed that you're running a 9-minute mile. And I was like, okay, maybe I can take that. And so we kind of sat with that. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, I think I'm just really frustrated that I just didn't finish what was on my list. And I just feel like every day I'm not finishing what's on my list. And then he had said, could you not choose to believe that content wasn't supposed to be created today?
Ooh.
Right. It's like, so again, here you two are like, oh, I love that. That's so deep. But if it's your partner, you're probably going to want to like punch him in the face. Be like, I don't need to hear that super woo woo Yoda. I am so enlightened that the content wasn't coming from me. But it's right. And it's true. Because after I slept on it, it's true. That content comes through us. Mm-hmm. If we are not the vessel and the vehicle in that moment, we have to trust that if we're disciplined and we're building in that time, when the time comes, it will happen. And it's a much better way to approach life in a peaceful way.
That's the thing. I mean, whether it's true or not, it makes you feel better in that moment. So it's got to be the right thing to say.
That's right. That's right. That's why I always tell, I'm like, you're going to live forever. I'm going to die young. Like, you just are never stressed about anything.
I like it. And I think sometimes we can make this entrepreneurial journey a bit easier on ourselves by just not trying to, nail everything all the time, every single day. Like my mantra, Susie Moore, she's amazing.
Yes, I do. I love her. I love her.
I love her book, Let It Be Easy. And that's been like my mantra. Just, is there an easier way of doing this?
Yes.
And that's really, really served me a lot, actually. And I feel like that's an easier way of thinking about content. So I could talk to you forever, but I have some questions I would love to, some quick fire questions to round up, if that's okay. So Perfect. The first two is just sentences that I would love you to finish. So happiness is
family time.
Success is
working with inspiring people who I can be creative with on my own terms and celebrate the journey.
Oh, really? What is a book or a podcast that's changed your life?
Early on, it was The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And then recently,
and he was epic.
I have a literary crush on, I'm just dying. I'm dying. That book was transformative for me. I just feel like I can't say enough good things about it. And then rather recently, I read Ryan Holiday's Discipline is Destiny. And that was a really good kick in the pants. It's like Stoic philosophy and they're short chapters. I think it's like super inspiring. It's super readable. One chapter before bed. I think it was really great. It was a really good read.
Oh, I love a short chapter. I haven't got the attention. Like a short chapter and a really white page.
And if there's like stick drawings, I'm even like here for it too.
Yeah, I'm so for it. Yeah, you should definitely try and get on a call with Gay Hendricks because he is even better like in the flesh.
I love it. Okay, I will.
And then my other thing is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
It was in 2005, 2006, and somebody in a room randomly, as I said, I wanted to be a photographer and I didn't own a camera. And he had said, jump and the net will appear. And I thought that was the stupidest thing that I'd ever heard. But all these years later, it was just jump. And the net has always appeared. And so I'm forever grateful. And that's the thing that I want to tell people. It will always appear. Always. You just have to have the courage to jump.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. I've absolutely loved chatting to you. Can you tell us about quickly about Social Curator? Because I feel like the audience are going to love that. It's what they need. And I'd love them to know all about it.
So we empower small business owners to build a brand and market it on social media. So how do we actually do this? We have caption templates. We have an editor, which means it'll give you inspiration. We have daily actions that you can do to make sure that they're under 5 minutes and still engaging with your audience, having a strategy. If you don't know what DMs to send, we have educational resources for that. If you don't know how to create reels and you want to do them in less than 5 minutes, we have tutorials, 3-camera tutorials for that. It's basically a digital marketing agency in your pocket. Do you have something to say and you want to market it? Social Curator will help you get it out there, create it, schedule it, and post it. And so it's been an honor to work with such amazing business owners and then really find a way. It's like, can you actually market your business in less than 15 minutes a day by building genuine, authentic relationships with great content that you like? And the answer has been, yes, it's a discipline, but we help make it easier.
Oh, I love that. It's so, so good. I'm so excited about it. Where can everyone find you? Where can they find all things Jasmine Star?
JasmineStar.com, at Jasmine Star on all social platforms, and socialcurator.com.
Oh, thank you so much. I've loved chatting to you. I've got so much from our conversation.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hey, just a quickie. If you loved this episode, which I'm sure that you did, it would mean so much to me if you would head over to iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to this and leave me a 5-star review. It means so much, and it does make, honestly, such a massive difference to how we're able to grow this podcast. And also make sure that you subscribe as well. If you hit that subscribe button, you will never miss one of our episodes. Share this with anyone else that you think will find it valuable, and I so appreciate all of your support. Thanks so much.
Bye.